let's talk about one more thing that I see when we're working with people who are trying to build a product and they're not sure which way to turn, especially if they're using like an agentic coding application to be able to do so, is that they aren't leveraging outside AI applications to be able to functionally push through their vision. And so, one thing that I always have open next to me if I'm using Bolt or something like that, or Cursor, is I'm definitely have ChatGPT on the other side. You probably use something like Perplexity as well, to essentially help you with the thought exercise as you're in real time responding back to Bolt. So you might say, come up with a user story of I want to build a recipe app, and that recipe app needs to be able to help people who have diabetes choose the right recipes. Well, in order to do that, you kind of need to understand what the studies and statistics are about diabetes. You probably, if you don't have it yourself, you probably need to know what type of things will spike your insulin or create a different insulin response than someone who has diabetes would need to have. So you have all of these different like gotchas that could happen in a product development process where you really should be leaning on an expert. And if you aren't that expert, it's a perfect time for AI to kind of help you out with that. So I usually have something like ChatGPT set up right beside my Bolt or Cursor or VO, and that and I'm running things back and forth. So if I know that I have to build something with a feature set that I'm not extremely familiar with, it is really helpful to say, "Hey, what's the stats on this?" For instance, one of the examples that I've used on the backside is reference one. So that's been like coding that up just to give an example of how it could work for you. Well, I don't. I've hired probably a couple hundred people, but usually I just like brute force it through other things like Zapier or Airtable and some type of integration with Typeform to make everything work well. Well, in this instance, the reason why I wanted to build reference one is because I'm really terrible at references checking. Sometimes I see it as a waste of time because no one's ever going to give bad references. On top of that, it's just sometimes the conversation, the person who's giving the reference doesn't actually want to. And so you run into the issue of you're getting, one sentence answers to open into questions, and that's not helpful for anyone. And then you end up with a bad hire because the references didn't actually take like what they were doing pretty seriously. So by building out reference one, we're giving them an async kind of opportunity to help someone out that they know well, and hopefully they won't have to do more than one reference check for the same person. So we can take the references that they give and then apply it to any other reference that ties into the job description that is remotely similar. And so by doing that, we're kind of making it easier for the candidate to do a reference check. We're making it cheaper for the employer because if a candidate already has a reference on our platform, we don't need to go out and get another one, which costs more money. So we're kind of trying to, make everything sweet and copacetic for everyone. But I've never run reference checks that way. I always just suck it up or don't do them. So one of the things that I had to do was get real familiar with all of the ways that we would save people money who do it that way, who are doing 3 to 5 references per candidate, which either means that you're getting a smaller funnel of candidates, which also isn't very great. So if you're doing like 3 to 5 references per candidate, each reference check call is about 20 minutes. Like that adds up really quickly if you're a hiring manager, especially if you have multiple teams hiring or you are hiring very quickly, like 100 people. So not only are you probably not reference checking all of the reason why people will mishire is because they're not referencing like they're referencing like 3 people, and maybe candidate 9 through 12 are actually a better fit. But because you've already told them, hey, go away, we already found, like, we've already whittled it down to the 3 that we like. In order to be fair to the candidates, let's be real, so that they can keep their job hunting. But at the same time, like 9 through 12 might have been better than 1 through 3, and a reference won't be able to tell you that. So in building out this process, I've been trying to figure out, okay, what does it actually cost someone to reference check 12 people versus the 3 that they normally have? Also, what is the problem with it being like the best candidate actually being 9 through 12 instead of 1 through 3? If they miss out on a candidate, like how much does that cost them, and how often does it happen, what type of role or what type of industry does it happen the most, where the impact of that mishire is going to like really affect the bottom line for that company, because they're going to have to hire someone else, and that person's probably going to disrupt their culture. A lot of reasons, I can go on and on. But I didn't know that off the top of my head, so I pulled up ChatGPT on the side and asked it all of these different questions about how the hiring industry works, and like, is retail a better option or is manufacturing a better option, just to paint a better picture, because depending on who you find is going to be the most in need of the product that you're building, that actually changes what the user experience should be like on their side. So I know that if frontline workers, or actually construction workers, actually need the best, like need what we offer the most, well, those people are usually on job sites, and they're usually through like subcontracting out the labor to a general contractor. And so you need to make it so that it's really easy for someone to access on a general contractor side, which means it probably needs to be a mobile first website and not an actual app, because an app store, if you've ever dealt with Apple, they take 30% of everything that you like process. And so you don't want to do that, but you also don't want to do a desktop for someone who works out in the field on construction like jobs all day, every day. So they need to run reference checks as they're moving. They don't have time to sit at an office desk. So you see what I mean? Like, you need to really use all the tools at your disposal to help you frame out like what the actual user experience is for what you're building, because that could change, one, whether you're actually interested in building that product, and two, how the product feels and how it looks. So hopefully that's really helpful. There's a lot of like articles out there of how to really prompt your way into a business idea, but this is more like you have a business idea already and you're just trying to refine it over time before you spend a few hundred hours trying to code it together, especially on an MVP basis. And then like you also need to know like what your markets are going to be in the future, so it's really helpful for that as well. So if you're going to go out and try to raise venture capital dollars, you kind of need to know what other markets you're going to expand into, that actually need what you have, and it's better to just do all that research up front before you even lay down a line of code, which a lot of people don't do, and that's why they get bit in the butt later on, because they've spent so much time. So then sunk cost fallacy plays a part. So you really want to have like all this research and planning done up front. It'll make everything easier, strategically and tactically, like at the end. Trust me on that.